Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters video. Alright, let's go ahead and let's do another entry here. This one based on one of your newer suggestions. This one having to do with yet another creature that is found in the mythology of the Philippines. And what's interesting is that it could be related to another creature or another item, a video that I've talked about in the past too. When I was reading this information, I thought to myself, I know some of this sounds familiar, and then when I came across the name of what it's related to, it suddenly made sense. Also, the last thing that's very interesting about this thing is the fact that it went through a metamorphosis of sorts between its original origin up until sometime later on when religion took over. So it went from being, let's say, a more of a creature to more of a spirit. One of the first times I've ever seen something like that when it comes to the world of cryptids. Of course, it's all based on belief. So some people still believe that it's more on the lines of a creature, others that it's more on the lines of a spirit, and it has to do with this. You're looking at it now. Sorry, it's definitely not going to be something that's easy on the eyes. If you're scared of little baby looking things that look straight out of hell, then this is not for you. It's known as the Tiyanak. So let's go ahead and let's talk about all the fascinating information associated with this cryptid. So what is this Tiyanak? Well, again, it's another creature found in Philippine mythology. Lots of other videos that I've talked about in the past. It seems like the Philippines is a mecca of so many rich cryptid-like monsters, but in this case it has to do with a creature that apparently haunts the forests located there in the Philippines. In fact, it has some very interesting measures to make sure it can attract people to its locations. For starters, let's talk about its appearance. Again, this is not going to be easy on the eyes. This is definitely something that'll creep a lot of people out. It'll creep me out too. Basically, think of it as a baby-sized creature. It looks like a baby, but that's about the closest interpretation of it being tied to a baby, like pretty much in terms of its size. Other than that, it's like a small bald-headed face. It has these ugly, really sharp teeth on it, pointed ears, these eyes that just look just straight bloodshot, almost like they have been awoke for a long time. It looks wrinkled, it looks decrepit, it looks like it's rotting in other cases, and the reason for it is because of how it's found, which I'll explain here in a minute. Another interesting characteristic, a physical one of it, is the fact that one leg is shorter than the other leg as well. In fact, it tends to be its left leg that is shorter overall, and what happens is this causes this creature, when it's on the hunt, to instead, let's say, run around, and it can't do that. Essentially, it then just starts jumping, almost hopping, and so a lot of people misinterpret it for it being more along the lines of a goblin, which it could be, or some other type of hopping creature there in these forests. But otherwise, this thing is definitely something out of your nightmares, and part of it is also because of its voracious appetite. It absolutely hunts and tries to attract people to its location. It basically eats them. That's what it loves doing. It absolutely just enjoys the hunt. It loves trapping people. It loves getting them lost in the forest, and when that happens, then it finds its prey, then it closes down on them, and the rest is history. Part of how it does this is actually very insidious. It uses the most innocent of things to be able to attract people to its location. Obviously, with its appearance and the way it moves, anybody that comes across it will instantly just start running away. So it found a way around this, and it uses, in this case, the wail of a baby, and this is tied more to it directly here in a minute. But yes, it uses the sound of a crying baby, which will naturally bring anybody to a location, no matter what you're doing. You could be going to work, you could be going to school, whatever is the case, but you hear a crying baby somewhere, and it just continues wailing, obviously like nobody is paying attention to it, or nobody is trying to comfort it from wherever it's at. And so you start wondering, what's going on, and if you can do anything. That's what it does. It just wails loudly to try to attract any kind of passers-by, and when it does so, then that's when it reveals its true form, and it's too little too late by then. Kind of ingenious, very insidious when you think about it, because it basically preys on one of the most weakest things that people have, and that's love for infants, love for children, especially little babies. Now, as far as how these babies are directly tied to it, we have to go in this case to the other cryptid I was talking about earlier that's linked to it, the Pontianak. I'll include a video of it, the link for it below too, if you wanted to check that out. The Pontianak was something, in this case a creature descended from a woman, somebody who died while she was pregnant, and then she came back either in the form of a spirit or in the form of a creature, and then was able to then prey, especially on men, for their bodies. It feasts on their bodies itself. Such was the case here with this Tiyanak. This thing, whatever it is, its origins comes from a newborn baby, but a baby, but not newborn. In this case, it died with, the mother died, but it did not, or it did with the mother, and it was buried basically in the ground, and then that's where it comes from. So any baby that's about to be newborn but then dies right before it does, like, let's say, come out into this world, it dies with the mother, and it dies with, basically in the ground itself. Then it's supposed to come back, at least according to the legend of its origins, and then it's basically taking on revenge because it wanted to be born, wanted to be able to have a normal life just like everyone else out there. But because it died in the ground, or it died when the mother died, or something along those lines, then that's when it caused it to essentially be quote unquote born in the ground, and then that's when it basically became this Tiyanak. So a little bit of something like origins tied to the other cryptid I was mentioning earlier, the Pontianak, in both cases involving the pregnancy, and in both cases involving a baby of some kind. But here you have the baby itself taking on the form of a creature. And then remember, I was mentioning that it's kind of like weird. It was more on the lines of the creature earlier, but then it was kind of shifted to more being of a spirit. This has to do with the notion of religion and how Christianity eventually took over certain parts there in the Philippines. Once that happened, the nature of it being, let's say in this case, a goblin-like creature, kind of morphed into being more on the lines of, the way I was reading the information, more on the lines of a spirit, something like a, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a restless spirit, something where it was not born as it was supposed to be, and so what happens is this kind spirit then turns into a demon or a benevolent, something that's just really, really bad, malicious. And when that happens, that's why Catholicism took over those parts. Also, Catholicism introduced the notion that any type of aborted baby, like in this case aborted fetus, something just manually killed, also becomes, in this case, this Tiyanak. Keep in mind that none of this was in place really before religion was introduced. Catholicism was introduced within those regions. But yes, that's what tends to happen. My apologies. Did I say Christianity earlier? My apologies. I meant Catholicism with regards to the religion. But once that happened, it was interesting to see and read that shift from it being, in this case, a cryptid to being more of a religious thing. So some people that come across areas, for example, that are known to have a Tiyanak, they tend to have more of a countermeasure involving a religious item. For example, they'll have a cross with them, or they'll say prayers to ensure, because their belief is more along the lines of this being a demon, that they are in turn safe. Speaking of which, here are some other interesting countermeasures with regards to this Tiyanak. You know, I love those whenever I read any information involving cryptid. It makes it more real whenever you have these known ways to repel something involving a cryptid. In this case, here are some of the ones that especially stand out. So if you're going into these forests, and let's say you have to be in an area with a Tiyanak, especially, again, if out in the middle of nowhere you start hearing the wail of a baby when you know clearly there should be nothing along those lines out there, then these are some ways to repel them. Apparently the best way to do so involves your own clothes. All you have to do is essentially turn them inside out. I don't know exactly how that makes it so effective. But apparently this Tiyanak will find that sight so humorous, like the idea that they're seeing people with clothes that are inside out, that it just decides to let these people go. So who knows, maybe that's this form of kryptonite, but that is apparently the most effective method, and the one that makes most sense in the ways that everyone has clothes. So all you have to do is just turn them inside out. You don't have to carry special things or objects, amulets, anything like that with you. No, in this case, just turn your clothes inside out. It was interesting to read that. Who knew that this Tiyanaks would have a special kind of giggles when it came to this type of stuff. Also, if you happen to be in the presence of a Tiyanak, you can do something like create a very loud noise, and it's supposed to just scare this Tiyanak away. Maybe it just scares it temporarily, but enough for you to be able to run out. All you have to do is just, I don't know, if you have something with you, maybe some kind of contraption, something, a stick, whatever that you have in your presence, just start making as much noise as possible, especially really loud noises. It's apparently the stuff I was reading was anything tied especially to New Year's celebration, like if you had loud fireworks, maybe those loud sparklers, really really loud, so by the way, then when you do that, then it scares this thing away. Otherwise, more traditional stuff involving garlic and rosaries are also supposed to be the Tiyanak's weaknesses too. But again, I think that ties more on the lines of the spiritual world or the religious world too. One other last offense that you have, but this one takes a little bit more intuition because you have to know this information beforehand. But if you know or happen to know from some other people the name of this lost baby, remember this, we're talking about something that was never born as it should have been, and so what happened was it basically is just always just trying to cause revenge. Well, if you know the name that this baby was supposed to have before it died there in the ground, and you cite that name out there again while in the presence of this same Tiyanak, then it's supposed to like cause some relief, is the best thing that I could read from it. It gives it peace, knowing that someone recognizes its history, and when that happens, then it lets you go. Also, I don't know what this is, but a white candle. I know obviously like candles are, but is there a specific white candle that some people can have? But if you have one of those, that also brings peace to this Tiyanak, and then that way it helps it try to come out from its realm and move on into whatever other measure it was going to. If you follow the lines of religion, then that's where it goes more towards the afterlife. But that's pretty much it. That's all the info that stands out when it comes to this horrific looking creature. Again, newborn type baby just looking straight out of The Walking Dead, feasting on people, absolutely just causing havoc, trying to trick them, lead them astray, get lost into the forest, and then it becomes its next victim. Very, very devious. This is not something to come across out there in the forest of the Philippines. But if anybody has any more info, anything I might have missed, anybody from, yet again, the Philippines and knows more about this mythology, so rich that area is, of these cryptids, then please post those comments below. That'd be really, really great to hear. Sorry about all the pictures, by the way, with regards to this video. When I was looking up the info for it, I saw that this was not going to be a pretty video to showcase because of this Tiyanak. Those of you especially that are like that watch those movies Child's Play and then hate how Chucky looks like in his angry form, in his demonic form, then this is definitely not something for you in terms of this video. So alright everybody, thanks again as always, take care.